Welcome to Careless Coder. Today we're going to turn these into this. Motherfucker! So a customer of mine asked if I could take his B deck and age it for his act. That's the same customer for whom I made that die force table about a year ago. And I said, sure, we can do that. And usually people use coffee and tea to stain or age paper material. Now that is a bad idea, and that's something that generally counterfeiters never use. Counterfeiters tend to actually take paper stock out of old books from that same date. And if you cannot do that, for example, for a prop in a museum, because a little known fact is that a lot of props in the museum are actually replicas.
It's really excellent. I saw the original in Paris at the Impressionist Museum.
No, you didn't.
It's because they're too valuable to hang there in the public. They have them in the vaults of the museum, but just not on display. And what they use there is what they call the dry technique, because otherwise it will show up. And especially with playing cards, if they get wet, they start to wrinkle and you cannot really handle them anymore. And in this case, he needs to full shuffle them. So let me take you on a nice little road on counterfeiting documents, or in this case, aging playing cards. So we start with a brand new deck of B cards and we go to town with sandpaper. We sand both the front and the back with 1200 grit sandpaper. This dulls down the ink and makes it look as if it was printed a long time ago and worn. And you repeat that for all the cards. So this is makeup powder. And it's a tan color. It's important you get the tan color because the beige doesn't really show up. And this is around $5. And you take a rag and you dab it in that tan powder and you wipe it around the corners, because initially the corners is what ages it. And it really contrasts nicely with the sanding that we done before, because the ink is a bit faded because of the sanding. And this already looks like it's very old. And the great thing that this is a powder is that you can move it about, you can feather it, you can take the clean end of your cloth and wipe it away again. So you can be very subtle or very heavy. In this case, the client wanted to have it very heavy, which is ironic because he wanted to use it as a 1940s deck. And I have a 1940s playing card deck that was issued by the Americans to their GIs, and it's not as aged, to be honest. But hey, client is king, so if he wants it heavy, we can be heavy-handed with this. And you do this, of course, for every card, and this is a tedious job. But yeah, you sit in front of the TV, like I am in this case, and you just wipe it in this oval shape, and be really sure to catch those edges. If you don't want a heavy aged card, use a paper towel instead of a cloth towel. Here I will demonstrate it with one hand. I actually did this card with only the paper towel. But as you can see, it rubs off a lot easier than with a rag that actually pushes it further in the fibers. And you have a nice subtle patina. And you can see the scratches nicely on the print from the sandpaper treatment here. And this was initially how I created this deck for this customer, but he said, it needs to be aged more. Okay, we can do that. So when they are done, you need to prevent the powder from rubbing off, because, well, this is powder, so if you handle them a lot, it would rub off. So we do that by actually putting a clear lacquer around it. It is important that you use a matte lacquer, that's what I'm using here. Otherwise, the glossiness will come back. That's, in this case, not what we want. You just spray them left, right, and up and down once. That's it. And just let them to dry for about 10 minutes. Now we're going to add extra depth by taking a brown in a rattle can and just hitting the edges from about 45, 50 centimeters up. And that's already enough. It really gives it that mildew look. You get these little tiny brown droplets in there that is darker, and that's already enough. And you repeat that for every card. For about 30% of these cards, I want a more pronounced mildew. So what I use is the splatter technique. If you push a rattle can in just before it really starts to spray, it starts to splutter. They call it the spatter technique. And there you go, we just hit it a couple of times, very briefly. And there you already see some big blotches. You can actually blotch them out, make a stain. And in the middle that really looks like it's, yeah, there are fungus or a moss, I don't even know, algae, what it is. And you also do that on the back of some select cards. So not only focus on the fronts, do the same treatment also on the back. And you can really see that it brings the card to life. It makes it really look old. This is what we're going for. Now we also gave the backs a very light sand with 1200 grit, but now I will hit them with that same brown from a high distance, and I focus mainly on the edges, and if I have a blotch like there, I just tap it in and make it into a stain. There we go. And just hit them very, very, very briefly. And it really gives it these dimensions. Make sure that they don't overlap, otherwise you have a very bright area. So that's why I'm rearranging them here and there. And you can, yeah, you can actually see the stains even on the video. That's really nice. And when this is dry, we hit it again with that clear lacquer. And that way we also make sure that the cards handle a bit better, because, well, they have become rough from the sandpaper treatment and all the spraying. And it's not the easiest deck to handle, but you can still handle it, unlike you would have treated it with coffee or tea. Because look at this, we can just shuffle them nicely, we can do an up the ladder. They just slide even better than the original old cards. So there you have it, my amateur counterfeiters. What will you be counterfeiting next? Bearer bonds? Checks? Old paintings? Because you now know how to age material and look convincing without getting all wrinkly and wobbly because you used coffee and tea. Those are amateurs. And that's why you come to us, because we tell you the professional way how to do things. I hope you learned something, and see you in the next one.
I saw the original in Paris 1 month ago.
Now you saw a copy.